Bonjour à toutes et tous. Les CCE, merci d'être présents. On est ravis de vous retrouver donc pour ce troisième et dernier jour de rencontre où nous allons avoir l'occasion d'évoquer cette fois-ci le potentiel de l'Inde pour les entreprises françaises du point de vue de la numérisation et de la digitalisation. Un pays qui a su imposer la carte d'identité numérisée, ADAR, avec une identification biométrique, un pays où une cigarette peut être achetée à l'unité en la payant à l'aide d'un QR code. De tout cela, nous allons parler dans notre prochaine session. Et j'invite tout d'abord à me rejoindre sur scène M. Sharad Sharma, cofondateur de iSPIRT Foundation, un think tank composé principalement de bénévoles du monde de la technologie, et leur objectif est de faire de l'Inde une plaque tournante des produits logiciels de nouvelle génération, et notamment UPI, le système de paiement qui a su s'imposer partout dans le pays et qui, on va le voir petit à petit, arrive notamment, et on le verra avec Christophe Mariette tout à l'heure, en France. Voilà, Monsieur Sharad Sharma, merci beaucoup de me rejoindre sur scène.
Good morning. So I understand this is one of the few sessions in English. So I'll speak slowly so that you can understand me. I want to ask you, how many of you are visiting India for the first time? I see a few hands going up. So of late, India is getting some visibility in rest of the world for all its digital stuff that is happening. I heard UPI being mentioned, but there are other things like UPI that have been happening in India. Collectively, they are called India Stack. Then, you know, a new term for it also is digital public infrastructure. How many of you have heard of India Stack or digital public infrastructure? All right, so I see many more hands going up. What I want to do today, in my 20 minutes that I have, I want to give you a small window of how it came about, and then tell you what led to this, and therefore what is coming in the future. So I will end by talking a little bit about the future. So this stage of India, which is about 15 years old now, you can call it the third innings in my story. So there are two innings before this. I'll talk about them a little later. But I will talk about this third innings, what's behind this third innings, and then I will share with you my personal opinion as to what will be the fourth innings. Is that a fair thing? Are you happy with that? All right. So this third innings actually is to do with a street vendor. That street vendor has a name. Her name is, actually we have given her a name. We use her real photo, but we don't use her real name. Her real name is something else. We call her Rajini. She is actually in Bangalore, and what she does, or she used to do about 15 years ago, was buy corn wholesale, and then she would have a small stall, and she would roast corn and sell it during the day. Now to do that, she would take a loan in the morning, a loan of 400 rupees, and then retire the loan, give back the loan at the end of the day. And she would pay 1% interest on it every day, 4 rupees. And if you really think of it, that 1% interest a day is about 300% interest a year. It's a very high interest rate. So some of us sitting in Bangalore said, this is very unfair. We must bring her into the formal system. This informal money lender system is not a good system. So to bring her into the formal system, you needed to make sure she had a bank account. In 2012, only 17% of the adults in India had a bank account. She didn't have a bank account. And so we needed to find a way to get more people in India to have a bank account. So at that time, we figured out that the reason the banks were not opening their bank accounts, because it cost 50 rupees at that time, and roughly about $1 at that time, to open her bank account because of KYC. So the KYC, know your customer process, was paper-based and was very expensive. So we created an electronic KYC. An electronic KYC reduced the cost of that KYC from 50 rupees to 2 rupees. And now suddenly the banks started opening the bank accounts for everybody, because at 50 rupees they felt that this customer may not have enough money in their bank account to justify spending that 50 rupees to open their bank account. But at 2 rupees, their calculation was that this would be a profitable customer. So I don't know how many of you know, India went in 7 years from 12% penetration of bank accounts to 81% penetration in bank accounts. Today, more Indians have bank accounts than they have electricity at home. Right? Second, if you now had a bank account, but if she needed a formal loan from a bank, she would need to sign a loan agreement. How does she sign a loan agreement? Paper loan agreement would be very expensive to sign. So we needed to create a digital way of signing. How could she sign it using a phone? Not even a smartphone, but a feature phone. So India created something called e-sign. Today, India uses more e-signatures in the world than any other country. The second most used country is US. We use 3 times more e-signatures in India than the US does. Third, we needed to find a way, if she signed a loan agreement, she should be able to keep the loan agreement somewhere. Where does she keep it? In 2012, 2013, there was no Google Drive or OneDrive. That came later. So we created something called DigiLocker. Has anybody here heard of DigiLocker? Yes, I see many Indian friends raising it. Today, this is where their license is stored. If the traffic policeman stops them, they don't have to produce a physical license. They can just show them a verified digital version of their driving license or anything else that they want. So last, we needed to send that 400 rupees to her bank account in the morning and take it back in the evening. In 2014, by now we are in 2014, the only way to do that was to do it with a debit card. Now, as many of you know, debit card charges 1% for the transaction. So we would have to pay Visa, MasterCard, 1% on the way in and 1% on the way back, 2%. And we were trying to get rid of the money lender who was charging 1%. So we said, how is this fair? You know, you remove a money lender who's charging 1% and replace it with a foreign company, Visa, MasterCard, which is going to charge 2%. So we went to Visa, MasterCard. They were very helpful. They said, this is a good use case. We will do it at half the price. So they said, we'll do it at 1% instead of 2%, half. And we were all techies in Bangalore. We had gone to meet them in Mumbai. We thought this was a very good meeting. So when we boarded the plane in Mumbai for Bangalore, we thought we had a very good meeting. When we woke up the next day, we realized, no, this is not going to work. So in 2014, we started this idea of building our own payment system, which we said shall be a public utility. At that time, Visa, MasterCard, Alipay, WeChat Pay were all private monopolies. So UPI, right from the beginning, was conceived as a public utility. Therefore, you are able to use it for free today. It is not underwritten by the government, but it is set up in such a way, it's called the Skype business model. You know, you buy value-added services on it. Those people who pay for value-added services keep it free for everybody else, for you and me. So that is the UPI model. Now, if you have two Rajanis, one pays on time and one doesn't pay on time, don't you want that the one who pays on time to get a cheaper loan than the one who doesn't pay on time? Yes? But our understanding was that the banks will never give her a cheaper loan unless she can threaten to take her business elsewhere. Now, what is taking her business elsewhere? Taking her business elsewhere is taking her financial data to another bank and say, look, I was with bank number 1 for 2 years. This is my record of repayments. This is everything that I've done in my life. I am happy to give it to you. Will you give me a cheaper loan? So she has power now to shop around. To do that, we created a system called the account aggregator system, where in India, she is in charge of her financial data. She can give it on consent to anybody that she likes. That system is inspired by the European model of saying that your data should be in your control, except we use an electronic way to bring it to life. We have just a few months back finished the 100 millionth consent. Now, 100 million looks like a large number to you. To India, it's not a very large number. So we are still on our way, but it gave us enough knowledge to then now create a system to extend this for all personal data in India. And now the work is taking place for training data sets. So all this, infrastructure that got created to mediate the flow of people, money, and information is what is India Stack. India Stack is this public infrastructure that lets you manage the flow of people, because whenever you consume anything, any digital journey means people are moving from one company to the other or from one organization to the other. Money is, of course, moving from one organization to the other. Data needs to move either for AI or for getting a personalized product or service. And so movement of all these things in India happens through public infrastructure because that ensures safety, privacy in a way that is not possible otherwise. So this is India Stack. Are you with me so far? Can I give you a small test to see if you've understood it? They'll kill me, they'll never let me come back again. But I'm going to do that. Imagine for a minute, I live in Bangalore. Imagine that I did take a flight to come to Delhi, and imagine for a moment, and to enter the airport, I use a system called Digi Yatra. Is anybody familiar with Digi Yatra here? I see many hands going up. So I entered the airport using Digi Yatra in Bangalore. This is true. Now imagine I was hungry, so I bought a snack in the airport, and I paid for it by UPI. Then I arrived in Delhi, and I took a Uber to get here. And I paid for my Uber using UPI. So humor me for a minute. Digi Yatra, and then 2 UPI transactions, back to back. One in Bangalore, one in Delhi. Now I'm going to ask you 3 questions. First question, can Government of India go to Digi Yatra and say, tell me all the flights that Sharad has taken in the last 6 months or 1 year? Answer is yes or no. How many of you think the answer to that is yes? I see some hands going up. Somehow on this side, no yes hands. I see some hands going up. First question. Second question, our UPI transactions are handled by NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India. That's the settlement agency. Does NPCI know that I had one transaction in Bangalore and the next one in Delhi, so therefore I have come from Bangalore to Delhi? How many of you think NPCI knows or can know that the location of my transactions? I see many hands going up. Third, remember when I use UPI, my bank account is debited. My bank account is linked with a system of KYC. I described to you eKYC, which is based on my identity. Can the Government of India put my Aadhaar number in some dashboard and all my Aadhaar KYC'd accounts pop up? In other words, they can see Sharad has 3 accounts. They were all verified by Aadhaar. How many of you think that the Government of India can have such a dashboard to know? All right. I'm sorry to disappoint all the people who voted yes, because the answer to this is no. And why is it no? Because in India, we had to invent a way to make sure it is a no. If it is only government policy, tomorrow the government can change the policy. A new politician, a new minister, a new bureaucrat can change policy. So we had to create our public infrastructure in such a way that even if those policymaker wishes to change it, it is impossible to change it. An example, In the protocol that is UPI, there is no provision for location code and the merchant code to be sent back to NPCI. And so the only way NPCI can get it if it changes the protocol. If it has to change the protocol, hundreds of companies have to make that change. It cannot be done in secret. There'll be a hue and cry, and people will not let that happen. Same is the thing for other things. If I had more time, I would tell you why that is the case. Right now, you can accept it on trust for a moment. Are you with me? So this system is useful because it's citizen-centric, privacy-preserving, in a way called techno-legal regulation. Our view is that in India, if you want to shape behavior, you need two hands. Like a potter's wheel, you cannot shape clay with one hand, you need two hands. One hand is policy, the second hand is public technology. When public policy and public technology come together, we call it techno-legal regulation. That is a guarantee that our citizens can rely on. If you have only one guarantee, it's not sufficient. But when you have two, it is very secure in the country. Are you with me? Now, this has unleashed a revolution. Why has it unleashed a revolution? Is because it came from an innings before this, where we had, I call it the dry years of technology. So in 60s, in 70s and 80s, India had an ambition to be a technology player. We created ISRO for space, we created BARC for nuclear energy, and we were wanting to go down this path to create technology. Then we fumbled in our economy. How many economists are here? Nobody is willing to, so I can bash economists, I see only one. So the economists got us into trouble and we landed up in a problem in the early 90s. We had to open up our economy, which was the right thing to do. And now for 20 years, the 90s and 2000s was all about building services businesses in India, IT services. You had Capgemini come here earlier, for example, their analogs. We had airlines as services. We had telecom services. We had drugs, generics, which was again like not products but services. And an idea took root that India should be the back office of the world. People like me who come from the tech background hate that idea. We don't want to be the coolies of the world. So for 20 years, we were angry and upset. I'm not joking. We were living in GCCs, as they are called, R&D centers of GCCs. For example, I was one of the co-founders of iSPIRT, which helped create all this. I left, I was a senior R&D executive at Yahoo before that, responsible for emerging markets. But I hated it because I didn't want to create good tech for just Yahoo. I wanted to create it for India. And for those 2 decades, where everything was about just consuming other people's technology, but not producing technology, because our mindset was broken, made us very angry. Anger really leads to revolutions. Who could know this better than you French? Isn't it? So now, so that is how this happened. And Rajni played an important role. Now where are we going here? I think now our appetite as a country has awakened again. We want to be a tech power. We want to be a product nation. From a small group of people, it is now a manifestation for elites, not only in Bangalore, but also elites in Delhi, in Mumbai. And they want to see this happen. So now this is beginning to take shape. We are trying this very hard in defense and making good progress. We've tried this hard for telecom. I come from a telecom background because I used to be in Bell Labs for many years. And I will ask you another question. Let me not ask it as a question, tell you as a story. Let me do a time check. I'm almost out of time. 2-3 minutes. Can I run over by a few minutes? All right, okay. So, no matter which airline you travel by, your plane is by Boeing or Airbus, maybe Embraer, 3 players. No matter which telecom operator you use, Orange, Vodafone, in India, Airtel, Jio, they all buy from 4 players. They're called hens: Huawei, Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung. We in India don't want to buy from Huawei. It turns out we are not the only ones, right? Now, so the question is, who will replace Huawei? If you go in the US, they'll tell you it'll be Cisco or another startup called Mavenir. They raised a lot of money, they're doing well. If I go to France, you'll tell me it is Alcatel. But if you come to India, I will tell you it's a Bangalore startup called Tejas Networks. Now I'm so confident that hens will become tens, that I am doing a bet, that if 18 months later I lose the bet, I owe you a meal. Otherwise, you have to host me for a meal. Is that a fair bet? If you want to take it up, you are welcome to do that. So the question is, how does India, which has been a failure in telecom equipment, go from that to having a reasonable shot to making hens tens? That requires new thinking, new way of developing a technology ecosystem. All that is coming from this original idea, which is called India Stack. And so that's kind of working its way. So as India does more of this, it presents an opportunity that I want to share with you. This is a view that I share in India, and there are some people in France who also share this view. And we need to grow the community of people who can bring this to life. So let me posit this to you. Remember I talked about Boeing, Airbus, Embraer? Not too long back, if you actually wanted to run an airline, the only real choice you had was Boeing. So Europe, in Europe, France, woke up and said, hey, this is not fair. We must have strategic autonomy in aircraft. But what did France decide? France said we cannot do it alone. So they roped in many other European players, Germany and UK, and then later Spain. And Airbus became a European project, a successful European project. Is that true? Now there are many areas where France wants strategic autonomy. Because like us, you don't want to have a critical dependence on China, nor do you want critical dependence on a few American companies. Now you're doing well. There are many areas France has strategic autonomy. Nuclear is an example, defense is an example, but the list of areas includes AI. And France is struggling and focusing hard to make that happen in AI. Jan LeCun and I overlapped in Bell Labs, so we, in fact, if you go to the iSPIRT Twitter handle called product_nation, I think one of the last tweets is iSPIRT talk with Jan when he was here a few weeks ago. And so the idea is that on AI, could we take a multi-country approach instead of a single country approach? On AI, could we bring India, France, and Japan together to create a project on strategic autonomy whose odds of success are higher because 3 countries are involved rather than only 1 country be involved? I think this is a distinct possibility. And this would result in deepening of the India-French strategic relationship in a way that we have not imagined so far. And I'm here to tell you that this is outside the Overton window today. Overton window, as you know, is what people think is possible, but it is slowly moving inside the Overton window. And if you believe in it, then that will accelerate the process. So with that, I want to thank you for being kind enough to listen to me so patiently. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharad Sharma, pour cet exposé dynamique et vivifiant, pointé d'humour. Thank you very much.